This is part 2 of Introduction to Photoshop, Designing a Magazine Cover. And in this tutorial, we're going to cover converting the image that we have, the person, into a cyborg. All right. So let me go ahead and do a couple things before we begin. Number one, I'm going to close out the magazine cover one for right now, just because my computer is having problems running Photoshop and the recording program. It's starting to cause time skipping and all that. So you can keep yours open. You don't have to close it. And I'm going to go ahead and just drag and drop this into Photoshop, and it's going to create a whole new file. This Photoshop right here has already been cleaned up in Photoshop. In fact, let me zoom in. You can see here she has flawless skin, and nobody has flawless skin in real life. So I'm going to get a different image to show you how to clean up the skin. I'm going to zoom out though. I am going to be using this image for the primary of the tutorial. I just want to show you how to clean up skin using a different image. So if that makes any sense. I'm going to jump over to the internet. And I went to publicdomainphotos.com, people, nice girl 1. I'm going to click on this image here, and let's just go ahead and pan over, take a look at it. And you can see that there's actually blemishes in the skin that I need to clean up, and that's exactly what I want to show you how to use the tools. So I'm going to right click on this and say copy image. Now when you copy an image, it stores it to the clipboard of your computer. So I'm going to jump back over to Photoshop and go File, New. Now Photoshop recognizes right off the bat that I have something in clipboard. This little icon right here is for my Wacom tablet. Just ignore it. It's actually very frustrating and I wish it wasn't popping into the shot. But anyway, so I have this document. It says clipboard right here. It's saying that the width and the height is already set for me. So when I copy the image, it stored all that data and Photoshop recognizes it. So all I need to do is hit OK. And then I can go either Control V in the keyboard or go Edit, Paste right here. Paste the image. So let's zoom in here. All right, I like to work at 100% when I'm dealing with a file. You can see down here it says 100%. I could just double click the zoom icon to get that. All right, so I'm going to go to the spot healing brush. So that's this tool right here. If you don't see it, click and hold down. You got many different options in here, but the top one right here, spot healing brush, is the one I'm going to use. The shortcut key is J on the keyboard. Now you can see here there's blemishes in the skin. All I need to do is click on them and they go away. And that's exactly how the spot healing brush works. It's actually an amazing tool. So I can just clean up some stuff in the skin. I'm using a Wacom tablet. It's a little bit more difficult to use the spot healing brush with the Wacom tablet as opposed to just clicking with a mouse. And I think that's pretty much good. Okay, so now that we got the blemishes away, you can actually go to your history and just to examine the difference. You can see here. Okay, so I'm going to zoom back out. Now once I get my head cleaned up, for the most part, what I like to do is create a duplicate of the head. Just in case the original I need to go back to. And we need to cut this head out. Now, I need to cut this head out too, but this one's going to be a lot easier because it's on a white background. This is probably more of what you're going to have on your own scenario where you have some kind of background in your shot, and it's going to be harder to select the head. Now, old school ways is that people would actually use this tool right here and draw literally around the person perfectly to select them. And this is just takes so much time and it's kind of a pain in the butt. So I'm going to go ahead and enter and I'm going to go select, deselect. I'm actually going to use the kind of a paint selection, all right, or a quick select, I should say. So I'm going to come over to my panel here and you can see here there's this brush with the little circle, dotted circle. That's what we call the quick select. If I click and hold it down, the other tool is magic wand tool. So if you're seeing the magic wand tool, switch over to the quick select tool. So click that, and it does have a brush, so I can use the brackets on the keyboard to increase or decrease the brush size. And literally all I do is start painting over what I want. So I want her, maybe a little bit of the jacket, the hair in the back of the head. Now, anytime I get part of the image that I don't want, let me just finish selecting the face. I'm going to decrease the size of the brush. Decrease it because I want to grab some of these eyelashes. All right, so like this space up here, I'm going to hold down Alt on the keyboard, or you can just click on this icon right here, and now you can paint out what you don't want. All right, And I can switch back to the plus, grab some of this hair, something like that. I don't want this area back here. And I don't want this, don't want this. Probably don't want that bump in the back. All right, so once I got a good selection area, I can go up to Select, Refine Edge. All right. Now what this is going to do is kind of cut it out for me. I can choose right here under View how I'm viewing this. So I can say Matching Arts, Overlay, On Black, On White, Masking Options, On Layer, and Reveal Layer. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with the white. Okay, so Smart Radius right here, that's for edge detection. I can turn this on and dial it up a little bit. Might help some. And I don't want this up here. In fact, let me hit cancel. I don't know why this looks like it's grabbing. So I'm going to go ahead and hold down Alt and try to paint over it to make sure there's nothing there. Now I'm going to go back to Select again and do Refine Edge. Okay, turn on Smart Radius again, dial it up a little bit. And then I'm going to do Smooth, kind of smooths out the edges. I can do Contrast to sharpen out the selection. And I'm going to click Disseminate Colors. Now, the cool thing about this tool is like the eyelash area. If I paint, this is the paint option. Let me increase the brush a little bit. Paint right here. You can see here it's going to help me try to grab some of those eyelashes. I can come over to this section here and I'm going to click in the area that I don't want. Make sure I hit Alt. So that way I know this is the area I don't want. And then I'm going to actually paint over the hair back here. It's going to help me get rid of this green stuff. All right. And of course I can play with this right here to increase or decrease what's being grabbed. Bring this down some. I can play with the disseminate colors to see what that does with the actual colors. I'm going to bring it about here. Don't want this, don't want this. So it kind of helps me go through. Let me increase the brush again. I'm going to hold down Alt and paint over this. See, it's having a hard time grabbing the hair back here. All right. But overall, everything else looks pretty good. So once I'm happy with it, all I need to do is click OK. And it's going to apply it. All right, so it creates a new layer, and then it creates a mask. This is what this is right here, is a mask. White reveals, black hides. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hide the original. And I can come in here and refine this mask. So there's a lot of areas I don't like. So I'm going to zoom in, start with the head area. Okay, so I don't like this going on right here. So I'm going to make sure that the mask layer is selected. And with the black selected here, I'm going to go to Paintbrush. And of course, I can change my settings. In this case, I want to make sure I have a hard edge brush, no spacing. And I'm going to paint out that area. Now I'm not erasing it. I'm just painting black to make it go away. If I paint white, so if I switch this, X on the keyboard will switch these. It's going to reveal. All right, so I'm going to go to my history and undo that. So black hides, white reveals, and you're making sure that you're on the mask layer. So I can come in here. Now if I click and hold down Shift and click, it's going to draw a straight line between the 2 points. That's probably good. Run around here. So I don't like what's going on back here, so let me just go ahead and clean up this. Now usually with hair I like to use a soft brush. So I'll switch over to soft brush. And in fact, let me decrease the size. I can even play with turning on shape dynamics and make sure I have pen pressure set for diameter control. And now I can kind of come through here and paint in or out. If I go X, I can paint in the hair. Looks like a lot of this should have been there. Let me decrease the brush size. So this is how I would help clean up my hair area. And of course, switch it to help get rid of stuff in the hair. Just bounce back and forth until I'm getting the desired look. Now I'm going to increase the brush size so I can get rid of this. Oops, wrong X. Paint this out. See, I want to make sure I'm getting rid of areas, so just go ahead and kind of eat a lot of this away. And then switch over, X, make the brush smaller, try to repaint some of this back in. Of course, I can't see the hair, so I'm kind of just guessing, but it's just a mess back here, so this will help clean it up, make it look better. And in here, let's switch to X and just start cleaning out some of this stuff. In fact, let me just make my brush bigger. Oops. There we go. Clean this out. Clean this out. Clean this out. So I'm just getting rid of the green areas, and then I'll go back through and retouch up the hair. Same thing with this area down here. Now right now I'm viewing this at 200%. So I'm not trying to be too particular because I'm zoomed way in. All right, and let me zoom way back out. Let's go back to my brush tool, switch it back to white, and start painting back in the hair. Having a Wacom tablet really helps with this. Be a lot more difficult with a mouse, but not impossible, just more difficult. So, like I said, you just keep going through and refining the selection with the paint on or off to give yourself the best results. All right, so that's looking good. And that's kind of the finished piece that we're going to be bringing in modifying. Now, again, I'm not going to be using hers. I'm just showing you that's one way of doing it. The eyelashes, whoops, I almost forgot about the eyelash area. Definitely want to clean that up. So probably come in with a black brush. Probably went a little too far in some of these scenarios, but anyway. So that's how I can bounce back and forth. That looks terrible. So I would definitely spend a lot more time trying to clean this up. Let me go to the black, increase the brush size, just get rid of this altogether. Something like that. And then go in with the white, X on the keyboard. Again, I'm using X to bounce back and forth between the colors. Decrease this. Like I said, I'm not going to be using her head, but there is one more step to cleaning up her head. Like I said, cyborgs don't have skin textures that I know of. I haven't met one, but I believe they don't have skin textures. So I need to soften out this skin right here. Now, do not use this method in real life when you're just trying to do photo cleanups, because this method is specifically to really flatten out the skin, to give it a fake look. I've seen this used, people try to use this in real life photo touch-ups, and it looks terrible. Your skin has some texture. Keep the texture. But with cyborgs, we're going to get rid of it. So with this layer selected, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it just so I have kind of the original with the mask. I'm going to hide it. I'm going to right click on this layer and I'm going to choose Convert to Smart Object. All right, and what this does kind of converts it to like a vector image, but it's not really vector. It's kind of weird to explain, but it's in Photoshop, it's considered a smart object. So now when I come up to Filter and go down to Blur and do Gaussian Blur, this is the option we're going to use to blur out the skin. What happens is that it will give me the ability to blur this layer, but it's going to allow me to keep the settings. So for right now, what I do is I dial the settings until I soften out the skin enough, but I'm not losing a huge amount of data. Like if I bring this all the way up, it's just going to blur the whole thing out. So really I'm looking for a nice median area just to give it nice, flat, smooth skin. So let's say something like that. I'm going to click OK. And like I said, because it's a smart object, it's being applied as a smart filter. And means that I can double click on the blur and still change it if I don't like it. And it also gives me this mask layer here, kind of like what we used before. So right now it's all white. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to come up to my paint bucket tool here, switch it to black, and paint it all black. So now it doesn't look like anything's blurred. Go back to my filter layer, make sure it's selected. Switch this to white. Go with the paintbrush, and I'm going to switch over to, just make sure we have a, click this top option here, soft brush, no spacing. And I'm going to increase the brush size. And I'm going to start painting it in. Oops. Yep, there we go. I'm on the white. And you can see here, let me zoom in. It's starting to soften out the skin. Let me get rid of, go to the paintbrush options, shade dynamics. I'm going to turn that off for now. Okay, so now I need to be careful. I don't want to like completely get rid of hair and stuff. So I'm going to be very careful on how I'm tapping this in. Even if I have to really bring the brush down in size. Because I don't want to lose details. I want to keep the details. I just want to soften things out. Now, even if I mess up, like I'm losing the detail in the eyelid right now, and even the eyelashes, if I come in here and just paint this all out, because it's a mask layer, like we've done before, I can go through, hit X with the white, or in this case, the black, I should say, and paint out the blur. I can make a really small brush and kind of fix the eyelashes a little bit, and then switch back, clean this back up. So it is a process. It definitely is. There's no quick fix to this. However, it's going to give you a very flat, nice skin look. Now, for border edges like this, sometimes I'll switch over to a hard brush. Make sure I have no spacing, because I don't want to create like a soft fake fill on the edge. Now you can do that just to show you that that is an option. What am I doing? Why is it? Oh, I'm painting. No, should be on the. Yeah, it's painting in the blur. It's just not creating the effect I want. So let me go ahead and go to my history. Create this weird effect. So let me get rid of. Okay, right there. So I'm going to switch back to my soft brush. Again, make sure there's no spacing. And paint. You just got to be very careful of hitting the edge. And you can see here it's creating very smooth, flat skin. Now, if I'm running into an issue with these edges like you're seeing here, what I could do is add a new mask layer to the actual image. So I'm going to click on here and click right here, this icon that creates a mask layer. And I can go in with a hard brush. Make sure there's no spacing, and set it to black, and kind of paint this back out to being hard. And probably need to switch back over. I'm creating a dent in the skin. It's not good. Okay, so that's a way of cleaning up the edges to still have a hard edge if you soften it all the way out to the edge and you lose the hard edge. Okay, so go back to this mask and continue painting. to get rid of, like I said, the texture in the skin, because she's a cyborg, or she will be soon. Okay, so like I said, that's going to be problematic. I'm going to switch back over. I think I'm on a hard brush already. Yep, should have been painting with a soft brush, but oh well. So with this selected, this one, make sure I'm on black. Can paint out this edge again. It's like that. I can even go down to, let's say, let me hide this layer, come here, and actually go to my magic wand selection, click, and why am I getting, see, I'm on this layer. Oops, let me use the mask layer, Control D, sorry. Mask layer, why is it selecting? Let me try something. I'm going to duplicate this layer. I'm going to drag and drop this mask to the trash. I'm going to say apply, so it applies the mask. Then I'm going to hit Control D and try selecting again. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Trying to just grab that selection. Then I can come back up to here, turn this back off, turn this one off, and I can repaint in. So this is going to be white. Oops, Control Z. I need to flip my selection, so I'm going to go select, inverse, and I can paint that back in white. And if I hit Control D, you can see here, I get that nice soft edge, or hard edge. So let me switch over to a soft brush to finish this up. Oops, come here. I'm just showing you the various different techniques you can use. Lips, same thing. Clean this up. And if you run into problems, just hit X and use it to help bring in some detail again. Okay, so that's how you soften out skin. And just as an example, let me turn on the original. That's the difference. Between the skin. Let me actually zoom back in a little bit. So there's a huge difference in the look. Again, this is not realistic. I wouldn't use this technique on real photo manipulation. This is just for the cyborg. So that's to show you how to do it. I'm actually going to go ahead and do that entire process to this girl. I'm going to pause it here in a sec and just finish it, but duplicate the layer. So I have the original. I'd use the quick select tool. Let me dial up the brush. Grab her. And that's looking pretty good. I can go select, refine edge, go through. Let me put this, because it was on white, let me put it on black. Just paint in some areas here. And I can play with Smart Radius, dial this up. Still thinking to apply it. I can disseminate colors. Kind of pull that white out of the hair. Okay, so that's pretty much good. I think everything else is right. Click OK. So again, it's going to create a mask. It's going to duplicate it, create a mask. Wow, my computer does not like running these two programs at the same time. And voila. And of course, I've got a lot of cleanup. So the same process that I've used before, I'm going to go ahead and stop it now and finish this up. Okay, so I'm back. Here's the final layout for the head that I have. Again, I just went through and did the same process that I did to the other one. I added a mask again to this head just so I can paint in the eyelashes a little bit more, because I didn't finalize that before I applied the blur. But anyway, you can see here that this is the final layer with the extra skin, and I can hide or unhide the actual blur layer or filter so I can see what the effect is. So once I'm happy with this, I can keep everything if I want to. I don't have to. In fact, I don't really need this one, and keep these layers. So I'm going to create a folder, this icon right here, and I'll call it head. And then I can place everything inside that folder, just in case I need to organize stuff. So that's how you can keep things organized in Photoshop. You can minimize it. I'm going to keep it open though. So I'm going to go ahead and go File, Save As. Yeah, I'm going to do Save As. I'm just trying to think about this. And I'm going to save this as its own Photoshop file. So girl's fine. I can call it girl cyborg. In fact, actually, there, oops, CYB. So there's my girl CYB. It's going to be a Photoshop file. Click Save. And I'm saving it exactly where I have my other files in here. Click OK. The next step is to draw lines to separate sections of the face. So we're going to go ahead and unhide the face layer here, minimize the head folder, create a new folder, and we're going to call this Lines. Now I'm going to jump over to the zoom tool. I'm going to frame the face. In fact, something like that. In fact, I'll zoom out a little bit more. I'm going to start with the eye area, and I'm going to use the pen tool. So I'm going to click here. Now make sure your pen tool is set to shape and not path. Set the fill to none. Set the stroke to black, and you can set the thickness to whatever you want. This will deal with how thick you want your lines on your face to be. And that is adjustable later. In fact, all this is adjustable at a later time. You can click the align to center, or you can use outside or inside. I like center. Caps I set to round, and corners I set to hard. All right. So like I said, you can adjust any of those settings to whatever you want, and you can change it at a later date. That's why I'm using the actual shape tool instead of trying to stroke something. If you stroke it with the paintbrush, it's kind of set in stone. You'd have to redo the whole thing. So I'm going to start in the eye area, and I'm going to click here, and I'm probably going to bring it, follow the eyeball, and I'm going to follow the little eye bone right here, and then I'm going to go all the way back into the hair. And to adjust this line, because there's a lot of things I want to adjust about it, I'm going to come to this tool right here. Now, if you don't see a white arrow tool, click and hold this down and go to the direct select tool. And that allows me to drag select over these points and move them around. Like this one, I think needs to be lower and more arched. And this one, let's bring a little bit more arch to it. This one a little bit more into the eye. Something like that. It's probably a little too much. Okay, so we have the following of the eye around the bone here and then into the hair. That's looking decent. So to create a new line, I'm going to create a new layer. And that way I don't have to keep adding to this line. And I'm going to click this pen tool right here. And I'm thinking about going down the cheekbone and into the jaw. So let's start maybe right about here. And it's probably going to be a little bit of bend right there around the cheekbone, sucked into the cheek, and around the jawbone. Now don't worry about going off the face. In fact, it's a better idea that you do. We'll adjust that later. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up just a little bit. Stretch this out, pull this down. Oops. Something like that. So it goes around the cheekbone or the jawbone. It's going into the cheek. And then here's the cheekbone, which probably needs to be a little bit wider. I think that looks good right there. And go ahead and create a new layer. Continuing on, click here, and I'm going to go up around the forehead, so probably up a little bit. And then to the center of the forehead, and then off, something like that. And let's adjust it. Thinking this actually needs to be adjusted all the way to here, and definitely given more of an arc. Looks too straight. That's better. Probably could still use some adjusting later, but I don't want to waste too much of your time pushing and pulling a point around. I mean, you could do that on your own time. You don't need me to show you how to do that. And always zoom back out and then click off your lines just to see what it looks like. And it's not too bad. All right, so now I've got the lines and the face started. Let's do the one on the inside of the eye. Zoom in here, create a new layer. Take the pen tool, click inside the eye, draw up, take it around the nose, and I think that's too far down. Something like that. Okay. And let me zoom back out. And I think two more pieces, one on the chin and one on the forehead. So this time I'm going to use the ellipse tool. Now, if you click and hold this down, you're probably on the rounded rectangle tool or the square tool. I'm going to switch to the ellipse tool. And if I hold down Shift and drag, it's going to create a perfect circle. All right. And you can see here, because I did it on the same layer, look what happened. It messed this up, and hence why I was creating new layers. So let me go ahead and go to my history and get rid of that. And let me create a new layer and redraw this shape. Hold down Shift, drag to make a perfect circle. Now I don't want it to be a perfect circle because this head is going to perspective. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to free transform it, which is Control T on the keyboard, or come up to Edit and do free transform. But before I do that, just to show you right now, if I do it right now, Control T, and let's say I squish it and adjust it, you can see here that the line stays perfectly thick, and that's not what I'm after. So I'm going to go ahead and undo. Let me hit Enter, Control Z. So I undid that. I'm going to actually convert this shape to a rasterized image. So it'd be like a regular image. So you can see here, rasterized layer, click this. Now if I hit Control T on the keyboard and let's squish it, you can see here that the sides start to become thinner. Now if I hold down Control and Shift, I can drag this up a little bit and this down a little bit. Let me squish it a little bit more. And now this should be in good perspective. So you can see here it gets thinner as it goes back. And that's exactly the way I want it. So let me hit Control T to adjust this to the face or the chin area. Probably something like that. All right. So now that I have, let me move it over with the arrow keys. I have the one on the chin. I think one on the forehead would be kind of neat. Now, of course, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do any of this. You can design your own layout. So I'm going to create a new shape, but because this is a rasterized image, I don't have to worry about creating a new layer because it will create its own. You can see here it created its own. And again, I held down Shift and dragged out. Let me go ahead and rasterize this image. Right click, rasterize, up here, rasterize image. And I'm going to hit Control T on the keyboard. Let me position this a little bit better. I'm going to squish it in. I am going to pull the perspective a little bit. Rotate it a little bit. Squish it in just a little bit more. Okay, so that should be good for the forehead. Let me zoom out. Oops, that was zoom in. And let me move it just a little bit more. Probably something like that. Let me rotate it. Okay, I think that works. All right. And let's see here why I'm here. There's the nose one. I should rename these layers. Let me pull this up a little bit. Okay, so real quick, let's start renaming. So we're going to call this one, double click, L I, or let me go LE out. Something quick and simple. And this one is going to be the cheek. So LC for line cheek. This one is going to be the forehead, so LF. And this one's going to be the nose, LN. Oops. And this one's going to be the chin, actually circles, C. And this one is going to be circle head. Actually, circle F for circle forehead. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop right now, and we're going to create a part 3, just because I'm running out of time and I don't want to bog these tutorials too long. So go ahead and go File, Save, and join me for part 3.